Dazza the cameraman. Today is Tuesday, October 18, 2016, and this is a live YouTube hangout. We've got Astronomy Live with me and Sean Hufford. We're going to be discussing the claims and videos by Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 and the recent events surrounding those videos and claims. So welcome along Astronomy Live, and welcome Sean Hufford.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for letting me tag along.
You're welcome. So let's just do a recap of recent events. We looked at a video that was posted. It was brought to my attention via Facebook, posted on one of my Facebook pages, and somebody wanted to know what we were seeing in the video. And as a result, I did a follow-up video to that, and it turned out that the object that we were seeing in the video by Scott of Nibiru Planet X 2016 that he claimed was planet Enoch, as seen from stereo behind, was in fact the moon. Now, Astronomy Live and I have been over this several times, and we have proven beyond any doubt that it is indeed the moon. However, it seems that Scott from Nibiru News wants to hold on to this lie that it is planet Enoch or some other rogue body passing through the solar system. Now, we've been backwards and forwards with Scott, and at first he was a gentleman. He did actually remove the video at the start, and it seemed that all was good. But then 24 hours later, he went on a complete rage and re-uploaded that video, maintaining that it is indeed planet Enoch. And he has since been basically a train wreck, making all sorts of accusations of conspiracies and that there are shills out to get him and that his life's been threatened and all sorts of things like that. So it seems that the gentlemanly approach has failed with Scott. We reached out to him. We tried to meet him halfway, but obviously he's not happy with that. So basically we've run out of patience now. I've run out of patience. So this is a no-holds-barred discussion about what's going on. So welcome along again, Astronomy Live and Sean, and what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that Kaiser Cube in the chat has actually nailed the nail on the head. His income took a hit after he took his video down and came into your hangout and agreed with everything that you said. And he realized that it was going to affect his bottom line, so he had to do an about face and just try to go into total damage control mode. And he's gone overboard with it. That's my take on it.
Astronomy Live?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, and I don't claim to know what his motivations are. I can't see into the mind or heart of the man, but he clearly is two-faced about the way he's approaching us. I noticed that anytime he's sitting safely behind his keyboard and he's not confronting us in a hangout, he will feel free to totally rage out on his keyboard and call us every name in the book, every name under the sun, chill, troll, liar, and worse. I mean, just dropping F-bombs left and right, and you know, totally hate on both you and me, Dazza, and you know, claim that we're all lying and everything else. Then, if you get him into a hangout, whether it's on your channel or WTF Sky's channel, suddenly he tries to play it up like he's just having a laugh, and sometimes he'll throw out these little snide remarks and insults, but he'll immediately try to say, "Oh, I'm just joking. Oh, I'm just joking. It's no big deal. I'm not an angry guy." And you might even end it on what seems like a good note, but you turn around and by the next day, there's 2 or 3 new comments that are just walls of text filled with absolute rage and seething hatred, both to you and me. And to me, I don't know. I can't, like I said, I can't read into the mind or heart of the man, but I really think there's something deeply emotional going on there in those posts. I don't think I could write like that, even if I tried, if I were just trying to fake it. Like, that seems like it's coming from the heart, is what I'm saying. So I don't know what his feel is, but the video that he's raging out about that we debunked does show the moon. And he claims to have this large PDF document that he received from a couple of astronomers, he says. And Dazza, you reached out to both of those. I'd love for you to go back over that ground again. I know we beat that horse, but I don't think it's dead yet. It's still entertaining to expose the truth on that, because last I heard, he was maintaining his lie that he had contacted at least one of the people in the screenshot he sent you, and you happen to know for a fact that's not true.
Yes, that's correct. He sent me this great big long expletive-ridden rant late one night just as I was about to go to bed, and told me that he had just woken up and that he had previously contacted these two astronomers, and he gave me all of the details. In fact, while I'm talking, I'll just try and pull those details up so I can read off them. And he sent me a couple of screenshots of the contacts at the University of Pittsburgh that he claimed that he had contacted. This gave me the names of the people, the two gentlemen that he seemed to be referring to. And I actually emailed those two gentlemen to ask them if Scott had been in contact with them. And the reply came back from both of them that no, they had not had any contact with this gentleman. Now, Scott seems to be incapable of or unwilling to verify who the two gentlemen were that he claims that he was in contact with. So it still remains a mystery. Well, actually, I don't believe it is a mystery, because personally now, after giving him every opportunity to try and present his evidence, I don't believe that he ever contacted these two people. I believe that it was a lie from the start. Okay, so I've just pulled up the message thread that was between me and Scott via Facebook. And just to recap, he said, I woke up about 15 minutes ago and I received an email from a gentleman who is a professional astronomer and astrophysicist and professor at the University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he is also the head of the Greater Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Astronomy Club. After having my conversation with you yesterday and watching Scott's video information pertaining to the coronal image from 2007, I decided to contact this man and ask him for a little help. I submitted to him a copy of the YouTube video that Scott made that I did not see until after our conversation yesterday. And I sent him a copy of the corona image from 2007 after I found the original. And when I woke up this morning, he answered my reply with a 13-page PDF file and is willing to join me, you, and that little prick Scott from Astrology Astronomy Live in a hangout debate, because Scott's information pertaining to the coronal image, and that being the moon orbiting the sun, is complete 100% bullshit. Now, he also went on to say that, let me pick it up, if we do have this hangout meeting and we record it and I place this on YouTube, Scott will probably have to close his YouTube channel down. He's referring to Astronomy Live, because these two men that are agreeing to come with us will make a complete and utter fool of Scott from Astrology Astronomy Live. Now, directly under that comment, he posted a screenshot showing location and contact, Department of Physics and Astronomy, and it gives the street address, Pittsburgh, United States. Dr. Adam Leibovich, Department Chair, and it gives his email address, and Dr. Robert DeBatey, Admissions Committee Chair. I contacted both of these gentlemen, and as I mentioned before, they have had no contact whatsoever with Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016. Scott is lying.
Yeah, and you know, something else I wanted to point out here was when you first shared that information with me, for kicks, I went and looked at all the professors that are listed in the physics department and astronomy department at University of Pittsburgh and cross-referenced this list with the heads of the local astronomy club there in Pittsburgh. And what do you know? I don't find any correlation between the people who are in charge of the Pittsburgh Astronomy Club and the professional astronomers at the University of Pittsburgh. They're two different groups of people. Now, if I overlook something, by all means, I'm willing to be wrong about that. But as far as I can tell, that was the first sign that there was something missed to me. But I let that go. I didn't harp on that too much, because maybe it was an innocent mistake. Maybe they were actually two separate people and he got the two of them confused. It happens. But at this point, I'm no longer willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on things like that. I was at first, but this story just gets stinkier and stinkier as we go along. And, you know, now we know that he didn't contact either of those two people. And at first, when the first email came back, his excuse was, well, I didn't say it was that one. I mean, he was on there in the screenshot, but I didn't say it was him. Well, okay, immediately before that, if you look at the original context of what he said he had this contact from two people, right? So wouldn't that naturally imply when he posted contact information for two people immediately thereafter, those are the two people he's talking about? I mean, would that not be a reasonable conclusion to reach?
I would think so.
And again, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that first until we got the second email back, but now it's clear he didn't contact either of those people. He's just completely lying about that. Now, that also makes me believe that he doesn't really have a 13-page PDF file, or at least he didn't when he said he did initially. Now, I'm not saying he won't have one eventually, because let's face it, he could whip something up in the meantime. He's had a few days now to whip something up. So far, he hasn't produced this PDF file, and he claims, or he's going to try to spin it and say, well, we're just worried about what that PDF file really contains, which is why we were so eager to see it. No, actually, I just wanted some confirmation that he was being at least a little honest and had the actual document. And when he refuses to produce it, that tells me he doesn't have it. Now, at some point, he might have something that looks like what he described, because if you look on like Chris Potter's YouTube channel, he just recently switched his channel, but he's got all these videos on this channel. I think it's now called A Physicist's Thoughts, and they all, are made up to look like real scientific papers and discuss things like why the SDO eclipse season can't really be due to SDO's orbit. And I did a presentation on that last month and showed all the various ways in which it is wrong and why it's wrong and why it really is SDO's orbit. Any real physicist would have known that and not made the very basic mistakes those papers make. But they fool lay people, because if you don't really dig into it, you could just easily accept it on face value because it looks authentic, but it's as fake as a $3 bill. So I think the same thing might very well happen here. If he's smart, what he's probably doing right now is scrambling to get a hold of whoever wrote the papers you see on Chris Potter's channel and trying to get a similar document produced for this incident, which I don't doubt it will happen at some point. But I'm not scared of it. I'm happy to take it apart once again and show various ways in which it's wrong. It provides not only entertainment for me, I enjoy, critically analyzing claims like this, but it provides a teachable moment too. I still see this as an ultimately positive event if it's used to teach people who want to learn how to be critical of claims like this and do the research and come to the realization that it really is false. Because, ultimately, if it helps somebody get their minds out of the woo and out of the nonsense, then I guess ultimately it provides a benefit. The concern, which I'm sure you've discussed plenty, Daz, is the unnecessary frightening and fear-mongering that it provides to sensitive people. That's the downside, but I'm just going to try to do what I can to turn lemons into lemonade.
Right, now we can see on my screen too that I brought up, here is the screenshot of part of that thread. You can see in the main text that's come from Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016, starting from about the third line up from the bottom, you can see that it says, these two men that are agreeing to come on will make a complete and utter fool of Scott from Astrology, Astronomy Not Alive. And directly under that, you can see, posted by Scott Cioni, the screenshot that he took and sent me with the location and contact details of Dr. Adam Leibovich and Dr. Robert Devati. So next to that, we can see, if I can just pull that up, here is the reply that I got back from Dr. Robert Devati. This was the second reply that came back. And as you can see, he said, Dear David Gregg, I have not been in contact with this person. Regards, Robert Devati. Here is the reply. This was the first reply I received, which was from Professor Dr. Adam Keith Leibovich. I certainly did not have any contact with this person, Adam.
Yeah, that about sums it up. Oh, sorry. Got a bit of an echo there. Oh, shoot, what was I going to say? I'm sorry. I'm running on 0 hours sleep in the last quite a few hours. But, oh, in case anyone's wondering what this video is that keeps looping whenever I talk, I put that on loop. I'm perhaps too proud of that. But basically, I did my own math on what the trajectory of the moon should have been relative to stereo behind using fairly simplistic methods, just two-body methods, to approximate whether or not the moon should have made that transit through the Core 2 image. And, of course, it did. My calculations are a little bit simplistic, a little bit approximate, which is why it doesn't match up perfectly in terms of the position, because it assumes that the Earth's gravity is the only thing that's influencing the probe, which is not true. It was in a highly elliptical orbit where it was being influenced by the sun and the moon. And you see it much more accurately in the ORSA video that I did and in Dave's video using Eyes on the Solar System. But in any case, even just using simplistic math you can do on a napkin with a calculator, you can get it close enough to see that indeed the moon should have been in the field of view. It should have come from the bottom right corner of the image. It should have gone in front of the sun, and it should have gone out the top right of the image ultimately. So it matches up. You can compare the size of the moon in the image. The circles that you see, those green circles, are again showing what is expected, what the moon's size is expected to be based on how far away the stereo spacecraft was from the moon. And you can see it's a match for what you see in the images. And then lastly, I guess it should be reiterated again that we're not saying that the moon is orbiting the sun here. The moon is orbiting the Earth, but the stereo spacecraft is getting sort of an almost edge-on view of the moon as it's traveling around in its orbit. It reaches its furthest extent, and then it comes back the other way. And that's why it appears to arc out and then back in. And so it's reaching maximum what we call in astronomy maximum elongation from the Earth. It's orbiting the Earth. It reaches maximum elongation from the Earth, and that's when it seems to turn back the other way. And what's really happening is it's actually it moving in its orbit in the direction that's towards the stereo behind spacecraft and coming back out the other way. So it's receding from maximum elongation. Once you understand that, it's pretty simple. It's similar in principle to how Venus always seems to, when you're watching Venus night to night, and it gets further and further away from the sun, it reaches a point of maximum elongation, and then it appears to come back down towards the sun the other way, because it's an inner planet. In the same way, the moon is deeper in the solar system than stereo behind. And so it's orbiting the Earth, and it reaches the point of maximum elongation, and it's orbiting around Earth, and then it comes back the other way. Once you understand that, it's pretty simple to actually intuitively understand these images. But people are saying, oh no, it's an elliptical orbit around the sun. No, it's not. In fact, in the extreme UV images, which I know I've shown, and I think Dave, you've shown this as well, you can see it transiting in front of the sun. You can see it in the articles that NASA posted that said it was the moon. You can see it on the stereo website. It passes in front of the sun. That's not consistent with an elliptical orbit that went around behind the sun and came back out the other side.
And indeed, every piece of evidence that we've looked at proves that this is the moon passing in front of the sun. And you brought out the very important point that Scott seems to have misunderstood. We never said that the moon was orbiting the sun. That's a ridiculous statement. Of course, the moon orbits the Earth, but it was seen from the stereo behind spacecraft as the moon passed across its field of view, while the stereo behind spacecraft was on its way out of the Earth-Moon orbit system on its way to its orbit around the sun. And of course, we looked at the visualization using the NASA Eyes on the Solar System simulator, and that matched exactly what we saw in the stereo ahead Core 2 images. So for Scott from Nibiru News to re-upload his video and still claim that this is Planet Enoch, it just boggles my mind. Either he is just blatantly fear-mongering and has just got his eye on those clicks on his videos, or he's completely nuts. I'm just not sure which one it is.
If I can point out what started this whole thing for the people that don't know, Scott from this Nibiru Planet X 2016 channel uploaded a video titled "The Video NASA Doesn't Want You to See." Now, DAZA and Astronomy Live have both gone over multiple locations where this video and the source files can be found. And he's still trying to say that this is something NASA's trying to hide. Just had to point that out. I'm sorry, DAZA.
No, you go ahead, Sean.
No, that was it. It's just amazing how much he's trying to say that this is something that's supposed to be hidden, but it's publicly available for everybody. It has been for 9 years.
Yep, it's there. The video that he originally uploaded, of course, had the date and time and spacecraft camera details cropped out of it. He subsequently said that the video had been sent to him and that information was left out and that he hadn't seen the original. That's what he tells us. With the number of lies that he's been telling me lately, I now wonder if that story is even true, because he's lied about contacting these two professors. It appears that he's lied about being sent this 13-page PDF document, which he's never presented. He still hasn't sent it to me, despite several requests. So, you know, as far as I can tell, this guy is just a compulsive liar. And now we see in his latest videos, he's been uploading videos of lens flares as seen from webcams. I've just uploaded a couple of response videos demonstrating that these are lens flares. And as I explained in those videos, the reason that we see the moon or the sun or the stars appearing to rise in the sky and cross the sky is purely because of the rotation of the Earth. Now, with the moon, of course, there is some orbital motion, but that is a lot less than what we see due to the rotation of the Earth. The Earth rotates once every 24 hours. If we divide 360 degrees by 24 hours, we get 15. So that's 15 degrees per hour that the Earth rotates. That's 15 degrees of motion across the sky that you're going to see the stars and the moon and the sun move. So what we see in the latest video that Nibiru News has uploaded is the full moon rising in one direction, and Nibiru, as he calls it, traveling across the sky in the opposite direction, which would be impossible unless Nibiru was in a very close low Earth orbit, like the International Space Station is, and was racing across our sky at a great rate of knots. Now, if it was that close, if Nibiru existed and it was that close, of course, it would be all over for us. We would know all about it already. Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's one of the things I find kind of entertaining sometimes is whenever you see these images from webcams showing lens flares, rising in the wrong direction or setting in the wrong direction, rising in the west or whatever, opposite the sun or the moon. I've done this before. You can take those images in some cases, especially if they're from a stationary perspective, and you can see a whole time lapse of the sun setting, and you can kind of use that to roughly calibrate where the camera's actually pointed if you know where it is on Earth. You can get alt-az coordinates. You can try to calculate alt-az coordinates for the various pixels in the image. It's sort of a rough astrometry technique. And you can plug those in, and if you try to solve for an orbit, either it's so nonsensical that you just get gibberish and it doesn't form a true orbit, or if you do find that it matches a possible orbit, you'll find that orbit is an orbit around the Earth. And oftentimes it's suborbital, meaning it would have hit the Earth shortly thereafter. There was one that I saw, gosh, it could have been more than a year ago. It was some, I think, Mexican or Venezuelan webcam showing a planetary-looking object coming down into the clouds. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, that it seemed to have been sort of a CG fake that somebody added in. But whatever the case, I saw for the orbit there, and sure enough, it would have hit the Earth like 10 minutes after the webcam feed ended, or the time-lapse video that was being shown ended. So Earth would have already been destroyed by the time I had done the calculation, if that were real. And so, these are claims that just make no physical sense. They don't add up. And so when he says he's got a 13-page PDF that's going to prove me wrong, and I'm going to have to shut down my channel, I'm going to be so embarrassed. I'm not scared of it at all. I've already done the math. So I posted a link in the internal chat here. As there, somebody can share that if you haven't already in the main chat. So I've already posted my calculations. I'm not scared of it. Go ahead and present your PDF. I've already done the math on it, and it adds up, and it's the moon. It makes perfect physical sense. And so I'm going to be doing a video series with these calculations and try to do some degree of instruction on how these calculations are done, because I know it is a very, very, very complicated spreadsheet, and it's not easy to decipher it. It can be done, but I mean, all the equations are there. It's just there's a lot of them. So I'm going to step through it step by step and try to do an instructional video similar to the one I did a few years ago with Venus and showing how to calculate Venus's position from stereo head. I did a video. It was really kind of long and honestly boring, and my quality was terrible. I'm going to try to fix all those issues this time around and come up with a better presentation and try to keep it maybe a little interesting. I'm hoping. Try to keep people's interest. I'm probably going to break it up. I'm probably going to have to break it up into multiple parts. Maybe do a section on here's how you calculate Julian day numbers. Then once you have the Julian day numbers, here's a section on how to calculate the orbit of Earth. And then once you have the orbit of Earth, here's how to calculate the orbit of the moon. And then once you have the moon, then you have to calculate the orbit of Stereo behind. It's all it's all involved, but it can all be done. In fact, if given enough time, you could do all this with a piece of paper, a pen, and a calculator. They're pretty simplistic calculations. They're just really drawn out.
So Astronomy Live. I actually have a proposal for you.
What's up?
For a possible video that you can do. One of his newest videos shows the lens flare that Daz was talking about earlier in Scotland, but he says that this can be seen all over the Earth. He mentions Hawaii and a couple of other places. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if something is moving in the opposite direction as the moon rotates, as the or the rotation of the Earth makes the moon travel, at roughly the same speed, it would be literally orbiting in the direction that we're rotating, only faster than our rotation. Correct?
I'm sorry. Are you saying okay? So, well, I'm not fully understanding what you mean when you say the direction the moon moves. Do you mean the direction the moon moves relative to the background stars, or the direction the moon appears to move in the sky due to the Earth's rotation?
Appears due to rotation. It moves 15 degrees an hour towards the west. Well, in his video, he's showing this lens flare, but he's saying that it's Nibiru, and it's moving in the opposite direction of the moon, again, at 15 degrees per hour towards the east. So I was hoping,
moving with the Earth's rotation and faster than the Earth's rotation. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I was meaning.
I was hoping you could do the calculations on what kind of speed would be necessary and what kind of distance that would imply on how far away Nibiru is.
Yes, absolutely.
Because again, he says that it can be seen all over the world. So the only way that can be possible, since it's flying by that fast and it's able to be seen on opposite ends of the Earth, it has to be orbiting the Earth, correct?
Absolutely. So, in fact, I have a handy-dandy Excel sheet calculator here that I keep on hand for doing some common calculations. So it'll convert various things for me. Like I can tell it if I want to know distance for a given period. I can plug in an orbital period. Say, okay, the orbital period is this many seconds long, and it'll tell me what the distance is of that orbit from the center of the Earth in kilometers. So let's see, what would that be? 15 degrees an hour. Let's see, where's my calculator? I'm sorry, like I said, I'm running on zero sleep here, so I can do absolutely no math in my head at the moment. So I'm just going to break out my calculator and do very simple math that I should normally be able to do in my head. 15 degrees an hour from an observer on the Earth.
This is literally taking Daz's most recent debunk. This is literally taking Daz's most recent debunk and taking it one step further to prove that it's not possible.
Right? No, it's not. Oh god, let's see. So it's moving degrees an hour. So 24 hours, it comes back around to the same position, basically.
Kaiser Cube just corrected me, and I accept the correction. Kaiser Cube just corrected me, and I accept the correction. The moon doesn't travel 15 degrees an hour because it has its own rotational speed, or its orbit speed. It's only like 13 and change.
Right.
So I accept the correction. Kaiser, thank you very much.
And that's correct, and that's why we can view occultations of the stars by the moon. If we know that there's a bright star that is in the moon's path, it provides quite a handy opportunity for astronomers to observe the occultation as it begins. When I say an occultation, I'm talking about when the moon passes in front of a star or planet, and using the accurate timings, it helps us to provide information about positions of stars and other objects in the universe. Scott?
Okay, so I'm sorry, again, my brain is on 12% power here, like my phone battery. So can someone just give me quickly the number, the actual precise number for the angular motion of the moon per hour?
I'll put up another window.
I don't know. It says it's 13 degrees per hour.
13? Okay, well, let's just run with that. All right, let's just say it's 13 degrees per hour. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that we're talking about it returning basically, whatever, 13 degrees per hour times however many hours, returning to the same position relative to a stationary observer on the surface of the Earth, but the surface of the Earth is turning. Now, let's assume that it's in Hawaii and it's relatively close to the equator, so we'll just take it as, an equatorial position here. You have to keep in mind...
Just interrupt you there. Correction too. Kaiser Cube says 13 degrees per day, not per hour. My bad.
we're actually looking at the rotation of the sky as it happens per hour.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
one location. You see it at like 20 degrees below the horizon. How far will it move in 1 hour, based on your own location?
I'm not talking about. He's talking about. If he's talking about degrees per day, he's talking about motion relative to the background stars per day. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about apparent motion relative to the horizon per hour. So if we take 360, I'm just going to assume that he's right about it being 13 degrees relative to the stars per day. If we assume that a sidereal day is 24 hours long, which is not quite, but if we take 360 degrees per day minus 13 degrees, so is that right? That's 347 degrees.
And Kaiser is agreeing in the chat there, by the way.
347 degrees per day, basically. Okay, so 347 degrees in 24 hours, but here's the deal. You are going around the Earth's center once in 24 hours. So if you remember, a geostationary satellite's orbital period is one orbit every 24 hours, and it appears to be stationary above your head. That's because you're rotating relative to the center of the Earth, and so is the satellite. The satellite's revolving around the Earth once every 24 hours. So if an object in the sky is traveling towards the east, and it goes around once in the same period it takes the same period of time it takes the moon to basically come up again, and it travels 347 degrees per day relative to you, an observer on the ground. You, as an observer on the ground, have actually traveled another 360 degrees. So what it's really doing relative to the stationary center point of the Earth is 347 degrees plus another 360 degrees per day, which is actually 707 degrees per day relative to the stationary center of the Earth, assuming you're an observer there on the equator, right? So that's 707 degrees per day. Let's see. So that's how many days per 360 degrees? God, I can't do math in my head right now. Let's see.
I'm sorry, I gave you the headache.
Yeah, exactly. 60 degrees per day.
Scott, how about when you do those calculations in the background? Because I know what it's like when you're on the spot and you're trying to do mental calculations off the top of your head. So we'll let you work away on those while we just continue to talk a little bit, and we'll come up with those. Yeah. Now, of course, Astronomy Live and I have certainly tried to reach out as gentlemen to Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016. I don't think that we could have tried any harder to meet him halfway and to try and show him what he's seeing in his videos, to answer his questions. But at the same time, when we have asked questions of him and asked him for verification of the claims that he's made, he's come up with zip. He can't even tell us the names of the two gentlemen that he claims to have contacted from the University of Pittsburgh. He hasn't sent us the 13-page PDF document that he claims that he was sent. He's got nothing at all. All he has are empty claims. And for this reason, it leads me to believe that these were just lies all along. And I see that WTF Sky has just joined us in a hangout. Welcome along, Mari.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, so I completed the calculations if anyone's interested. If I'm doing this right, and again, I apologize if I'm making a mistake here. It's entirely possible since I have no sleep. But if we assume a orbital motion of 707 degrees per day relative to the center of the Earth, that is 0.509 days per revolution of this thing around the Earth, relative to the stationary center point. That equates to an orbital period of 43,994 seconds. If you plug that in, given the mass of the Earth and the gravitational constant and all of that, you end up with a distance for a circular orbit of 26,935 kilometers. So it would be inside the geostationary belt, which sounds about right to me off the top of my head. So there you go.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Nibiru is supposed to be what, 4 times the size of Jupiter?
Yeah.
And just as a comparison to, the diameter of the Earth is 12,756 kilometers, and you're talking about an orbital height of, what was that figure again?
26,935 kilometers.
Right. So, Houston, we have a problem.
Apparently we are inside of Nibiru right now.
Now, Scott was always welcome. Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 was always welcome to meet us in a hangout and discuss things openly and honestly. But instead of doing that, he chose to turn around and, well, turn on us and upload videos accusing us, falsely accusing us, of being shills and out to destroy him and telling lies and all this sort of thing, which is absolute nonsense. We believe in absolute transparency. This is why I allow open and balanced discussion on my channel. I almost never delete comments from my channel. I almost never ban people. There are only most extreme circumstances where I will delete comments and ban people, such mostly because of mindless spamming. And usually when somebody posts negative comments on my channel, even if they're attacking me and saying the most disgusting things, I will leave that comment there so everybody else can see what sort of person we're dealing with. But on Nibiru Planet X 2016 channel and many of these similar channels so-called that call themselves so-called truthers, what we find time and time again is that people are banned, they have their comments deleted, and any open and balanced discussion is shut down. It seems to me that the truthers are the worst offenders when it comes to censorship.
I agree.
Mary,
I
would you
agree
like to chime in?
entirely. I gotta agree entirely because I was on both sides of the deal. You know, I started out delving into my own channel, and I was like the big Planet X hunter on webcams in Mexico, thinking I knew it all and everything. And you know, I pushed myself to really gain understanding, and I realized I don't know anything. I'm like totally ignorant, you know. And I'm humble enough to, you know, look back and be like, wow, those guys I called trolls before, they were just trying to help me. You know, they were helping me understand stuff, and I'm humble enough, and you know, I don't know, I just don't care. I don't have a lot of ego, so I'm okay saying I was wrong, and let's, you know, dig deeper into it. I can understand both sides, and I can understand how people can get in this rabbit hole and really truly believe that something's going on, because it's happened to me, and I'm not like some dummy. I mean, I'm like this geeky computer nerd girl. You know, this kind of trap happens to very smart, educated, very well knowledgeable, you know, just knowledgeable people. It's just hard for me to explain how people can get in this trap. And some people like the comfort of being in that trap because it brings them, you know, it's for ego reasons when it comes to whether or not they're getting view counts, subs, you know, money. you know, it's all the wrong reasons. And I turned my channel around into just sort of educating those people stuck in the rut for, different, I don't know, just to educate people, try to pull people out of the rabbit hole, really.
Yeah, it just sickens me to see the fear mongering and so on that goes on YouTube. It seems that that Nibiru Planet X is a meal ticket for many people, because they can set up these channels, post these outrageous videos, and they can be guaranteed many thousands of views. The videos that I upload, I can never hope to have as many views as these channels, and that's not my aim. If that was my aim, I would be uploading Nibiru videos or cat videos or something else other than debunking videos, because, you know, most people, I guess, that have the sense to watch a debunking video aren't the ones that are following these nonsense videos to the extent that they are. Nibiru Planet X 2016 channel has almost 30,000 subscribers now. And, you know, they're all lapping up this nonsense, looking at these lens flares and so on that Scott is insisting is Nibiru arriving now. He's fear-mongering. And maybe another topic that we could discuss was his recent video with the executive order from the White House regarding CME, impact space weather, and that sort of thing.
Well, as far as that goes, he latched onto the geomagnetic issues. And he's thinking that that's because they know Nibiru is coming. That's what he's latching onto and hope that it sticks in people's heads. Now, that was the last thing that was mentioned as far as disasters go. And there are things that can mess up our magnetic field. Even earthquakes can mess with the magnetic field for at least temporarily. But about the only thing that's going to mess up our magnetic field for any kind of serious effect would be a CME. Or possibly even a gamma ray burst could do it if we survived it.
Right. Now, with this executive order, it's all about preparedness, okay? And he's blown this out of all proportion, as if something is going to happen next week or next month or very soon. Now, heaven forbid that the government should be proactive in trying to be prepared for such an event, as has happened before. Back in, I think it was 1859, if I remember correctly, we had the Carrington event. We had just, we were using telegraph back in those days. It was a fairly new invention. And the telegraph lines were overloaded, even caused fires in some places because of the currents that were induced into the wires. If a Carrington-type CME solar flare happened today, it would cause serious damage to our communications and power networks. Similar things have happened before to a lesser extent. We've had a large solar flare in March of 1989 that took out the power grids in North America. So all they're doing with this executive order is trying to make sure that the infrastructure is protected, that we're ready in the event that this sort of thing happened again. And I guess there would be a similar sort of scaremongering parallel if they decided to launch some sort of protection system to protect us from incoming meteors. No doubt if they launched a system to do that, we would see videos from Nibiru Planet X 2016 and all of the other fearmongers saying, oh my God, there's an incoming asteroid, it's going to hit us next week. This is just nonsense. It's just about preparedness, and that's all. So I'm looking forward to following up on these fear-mongering videos in another month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months sort of thing, and saying, right, where is this catastrophe that you've been talking about, where you've caused all of this panic for people and told them that they need to get prepared and basically head for their bunkers? I'm looking forward to hearing the explanation for that one.
I can actually give you the answer. What they're going to do is, got some bad echo from you, Deza. What they're going to end up doing is, when the time comes and goes, they're just going to push it back another 3 months. They've been doing this since 2012. It's like clockwork. It never fails.
I just can't believe it could go on this long. I mean, it's crazy to me. When I was in the midst of it, you know, I became, it was sort of like a familial environment. It's like these group of people like in end times. And, you know, I became friends with a lot of them. And that's why I try to tread in the middle and try to help people out on either side, because I just want to play a neutral part in this very, like, it's very sensitive situation. But like Steve Olson, he had me running his backup channel, and as soon as I started bringing logic into things, like, I didn't just stop researching at webcams in Mexico. I went out further, branched out, got a telescope, got an SLR, got an H-alpha telescope. Like, I really got into it big time. And once I started discussing atmospheric phenomena, camera optics, you know, that kind of stuff, it's just like they turn a deaf ear on you. It's like you don't even exist. And you know, you could scream all you want to some of these people, and they will not listen until, you know, something either slaps them in the face, or, you know, I've seen a few of these channels just sort of disappear. You know, I've seen some disappear and come back under other names, you know, once they get in a certain amount of trouble. So I don't know. I think it's gotten to a point now where I think it's grown to a point where it affects tens of thousands of people, and it really bothers me, because I know what it did to me personally, to my personal life. You know, honestly, when you're ignorant, and I was totally ignorant, like when I first started this, I was afraid to go on vacation or plan vacations. I go to the Montreal Grand Prix every single year, and I was afraid to even go because I thought I was going to be like smacked in the face with an asteroid or something. You know what I mean? Like, people don't understand how it affects the mindsets of certain people, especially people that are, you know, ignorant and just delicate psychologically. Like, I was dealing with just some problems after my dad died, and I was in a funk, and I just was easily deceived, and it had the wool pulled over my eyes, you know. So for this to be going on since 2012, and some people have been stuck in this rabbit hole that long, it's shocking to me. And that's why I'm sort of stubborn on my channel. I've had so many people want me to shut it down. I feel like I have to be here for people.
Well, if I can do a little disclaimer here, and I got to say thank you for actually using the word ignorant. A lot of people think that's an insult, and ignorance is just a lack of knowledge. It just means you don't know something about something in particular. Yep. Ignorance can be fixed. That's just learning.
Exactly. You know, you got to be humble enough to just admit you don't know enough. When I bought my telescope, I thought I would just point it at the sky and like see stuff. And you just, unless you use a telescope, you don't know that. It's super technical, you know, calibrating it, getting it to, you know, slew just right and everything. It's way more complex than people. I think people highly underestimate, you know, what's involved. And it's just, people have to learn the hard way, essentially. I know I did, but I pushed myself to be there. I didn't just, you know, get stuck in this little tunnel of webcams to Mexico and the FAA cams and all that, you know. You can't do anything scientific with webcams.
Yeah, you know, one of the things... Sorry.
Yeah, so I'll just say, I've noticed lately too that Scott has been hosted on a number of Christian radio shows, and he is really talking up this nonsense about Nibiru Planet X, and, you know, basically putting the fear of God into people about this coming catastrophe that he's talking about. Now, you can see on my screen, I've got a Google search for Isabel Taylor suicide. This is the case that I've referred to previously. Isabel Taylor was a 16-year-old schoolgirl from the UK who, in the lead up to the predictions surrounding December 21, 2012, she hanged herself because she felt that she couldn't face the nuclear meltdown that she believed was coming as a result of 2012. So she hanged herself, and you can see that there are links here. I'm not a big fan of the Daily Mail website, but I'm going to go to this link because it's got a good picture of Isabel here, so that we can see that she is a real person. She is not just a name in some sort of fake story. And this is Isabel Taylor. Sorry, my browser's just going a bit slow at the moment with everything going. This is Isabel Taylor, 16 years old, from the UK, who hanged herself. Now, this is a real tragedy. Some people have even called into question whether this story is actually true. And I've actually been all over this. I have verified that she certainly was a real person. I've verified the details of her parents. I've also verified the details of the coroner that was involved. And a memorial has also been set up by Isabel's parents in memory of her. So this is a classic example of the sort of tragic results that can happen as a result of the type of fear-mongering that Nibiru Planet X 2016 and others are doing with these YouTube videos.
you know, it's an older case, but it's perhaps good to remind ourselves that the Heaven's Gate cult. I don't know how many of you remember that from the '90s. Perhaps I'm dating myself with some of the younger folks in the crowd, but the Heaven's Gate cult committed a mass suicide when I was in high school in the 1990s, and that whole deal, which was all about Comet Hale-Bopp, really started with apparently somebody who was an amateur astronomer who took a picture of Hale-Bopp with his telescope and saw a star near it and thought it was a UFO trailing the comet. Well, he called into the National Late Night Radio show and reported this UFO following this comet. And while he could have never anticipated what ultimately happened as a result of that, what ultimately happened is this cult latched onto that claim and said, there's a real UFO trailing this comet. An amateur astronomer confirmed it. And so they decided to drink poison or something like that, basically kill themselves, because they thought they were going to beam up to the spaceship that was following the comet. It wrecked lives, and I forget how many people died. It was a mass suicide event, and it all started because of a false astronomy claim. So we have to be responsible and guard ourselves against that, because devastating consequences can happen, and people can even end up dying. They can end up committing suicide, whether they're part of a cult or not. So it is a very serious matter.
Mari, would you like to comment further on that?
It is a serious matter. I mean, I'm so passionate about it, and that's why I stay here, even though it's more pain and heartache than anything. You know, when I was in this little, you know, rabbit hole or whatever you call it, I was on the NAO website every day looking, you know, at possible NEOs that are going to come in, and there was some days I was afraid to send my daughter to school. You know, it super affects people, and I look back now and I'm just like, wow, you know, how could something take me and rock me so emotionally and drive me to be in so much fear? It's like crazy. It's crazy to me, and I want to be here for others to let them know that, you know, this happens to good people and it's okay. And this is how, you know, my channel, I'm trying to show people how they can find the answers themselves. If they don't believe me, they can, you know, I'll show them how they can figure out the answer themselves. And I think that's, you know, why I'm drawn to you guys, because that's exactly what you guys do. You know, I'm so thankful to stumble upon both of your channels and, you know, become, you know, a part of this little group that's growing by the day, of people that really just, you know, want to band together for real truth.
Oh, thank you, Mari, and I'm really pleased to see and hear your story too, that, you know, you were somebody who was believing in Nibiru, and you investigated it, and obviously you've seen through it for what it is. I wish that there were a lot more people that could see just how nonsensical these claims are, but unfortunately the vast majority of people just go along with it. And again, the irony is there that these people that call themselves truthers, they love to call others sheep or sheeple. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to sheeple, I've never seen so many sheeple in my life. You know, you've got almost 30,000 subscribers following Nibiru Planet X 2016. And what is he uploading? He's uploading videos of lens flares and anything but Nibiru. As I said at the start of his video of the moon passing in front of the stereo behind spacecraft, which he claims was planet Enoch. Really? Come on, dude.
Well, and if you're on like Steve Olson's channel, there's a ton of hypocritical Christians on there that pretty much have like a cult mentality. Like they're like looking for Steve every day. If he doesn't post, are you there, dude? I can't wait to, you know, it's like they need him. And it's a little alarming how reliant people are on his information. And there's some things that people have come to me about Steve's channel. He created these groups internationally. You know, he has worldwide groups all over the world. And he has these group leaders. None of them have been background checked. None of them have, you know, have proper credentials. I've heard of some of these guys like having shipping crates, and they're asking people in their groups to like fill them up, like have them put all their like bullets and supplies and guns in like these shipping crates. And then like, you know, people are worried about the shipping crates disappearing, you know, just weird stuff where people could really get in trouble and lose a lot of, you know, I think some of them are selling parts of their land to other group members. I don't know. To me, it's a little scary how involved people are getting, where it's directly affecting their lives. And I just, it's dangerous.
Yeah. I just want to give a bit of a shout out too to my old friend Logan Runnan, who is in the chat there. And I'm sure that Logan won't mind me saying this, is that Logan and I go way back on YouTube. And my first contact with Logan was actually going head to head with him over some of his videos that he uploaded. In particular, one video that sort of really solved it all was a video about the western sky object. There was this mystery object in the sky, and as I recall, I think it was Venus, which I explained to Logan. And you know, we went head to head, and he said, no, that's not Venus. And he actually borrowed a phone and installed the astronomy app on it and pointed it at the sky and said, no, look, it's definitely not Venus. And good on him for uploading the video. But the problem was that he had forgotten to enter his location in the setup for the astronomy app. So it was actually basically looking in the wrong direction in the sky. So once he had done that, he actually verified that it was indeed Venus. And he fronted up and he said, well, Dazza, you were right. And I'm so pleased to say that Logan now debunks this sort of nonsense. He has taken on a lot of these sort of claims and ripped them to shreds. So that is one little victory. I'm very pleased about that.
You know, one of the points that I want to go back to just briefly is something you said, Mari, was that you found out once you got a telescope that it is a very technical process to use it and set it up and all this. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I'm guilty myself of not reminding people, I think, frequently enough of just what it really means to, or what it really takes to take pictures of the stars like I take, or like some of the pictures that Gaza takes. You know, people see these pictures all the time in magazines and websites, pictures of nebula and galaxies, beautiful pictures. But what they don't realize is that that's not what you see when you look through a telescope. If you just use your eye and you look through an eyepiece of a telescope, you're not going to see these huge vistas of colorful stars and colorful galaxies and all this. These are really, really dim objects and really, really dim stars. And your dark perception, your rods in your eye do not perceive color. And so the most sensitive parts of your eye are colorblind. So even when you're perceiving these nebula and faint hints of galaxies with just the limits of human vision, you can't even see a color in it, and it just looks like a faint fuzzy. And so that's what we actually call them, sort of as a nickname in amateur astronomy, is when you're observing deep sky objects through an eyepiece in a telescope, we call them faint fuzzies, because that's basically all the eye can see. And sometimes you can see some degree of shape or definition to it, depending on how large your telescope is. But it's not at all like what you see in pictures. And people, I don't think, readily understand that, and so they think there's a much shallower learning curve to it, and they think that there's a much shorter distance between a picture that is taken, and by distance I don't mean physical distance, I mean skill-wise distance and light magnitude distance between what, say, I might take in a picture of, you know, the Omega Nebula or whatever, and I upload that, versus what a webcam might see. And so when somebody sees something mysterious in a webcam, they think, well, it doesn't even cross their mind that there are so many amateur astronomers looking at every day and every night, doing solar observing, doing lunar observing, doing planetary observing, deep sky observing, photographing the stars, photographing all of this, that it would be extraordinarily unlikely for something to persist in the sky like that in a webcam. And if it were a real object, for it not to be seen by amateurs everywhere, and it would set the internet on fire. You could go to, you know, any amateur astronomy site, Cloudy Nights Forum, for example, and you would see everyone ranting about this, because it would get noticed right away. Amateur astronomers, when they're taking pictures of these deep space objects, they're doing really long, really deep exposures. Like if I do a photograph of some nebula, I'll usually spend at a minimum 1 hour collecting light on it and let my telescope sit there collecting these pictures. And then I'll just, you know, sit back and watch the sky in the meantime. But, you know, these photographs require intense integrations of photons over long periods of time. That's what our eyes can't do. Our eyes process light instantly. So to see these deep sky objects, you have to collect photons of light for long periods of time. It's one of the reasons why telescopes have another nickname, light buckets. They're collecting that light over long periods of time. And from that, they can create these beautiful images. But it's not what your eyes see, because your eyes just aren't sensitive enough. You know, so there's a huge difference there between what these telescopes are able to see and what a webcam is able to see. Webcams can't even come close to touching what you could see if you were looking at the sky with a telescope. So when someone posts, you know, images of something in the sky, and let's say I figure out, based on the orientation of the camera or whatever, what the coordinates are, and I point my telescope at it, and I don't see anything there, all the time I'll hear back, well, okay, so your telescope didn't see it, but maybe your telescope lacks the ability that the webcam has. And it just tells me right away lack of understanding in, I think, the public at large of what the difference in capability there is, you know? And so, if it's not showing up in a telescope, especially, with a sensitive CCD camera, which is, by the way, most CCD cameras are able to see into infrared if you just take the infrared filter off. Most CCD cameras, consumer cameras, come with a built-in blocking filter. Astronomical cameras, generally, those are not built in or they're easily removable. And so you just take that off, you can see into near infrared, no problem at all. And so if it's not showing up there, then I'm sorry, the webcam is not going to be superior to what the telescope is.
Astronomy Live, can you check the position of your mic? You're getting kind of muffled.
Yeah, it's just a terrible mic. I'm sorry. My mic is built into my headset here. I can't. It's flush with the headset. I can't really adjust it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and yeah, just to pick up from what you're saying there, Astronomy Live, at the observatory, one of the cameras that we use with the telescope, we can use it on the 14-inch Meade LX200 that we use. That is a Canon 60D A DSLR. Now, the standard version of that camera is the Canon 60D. The A stands for astrophotography. And just as Astronomy Live was saying, the infrared cut filter has been removed from that camera when it was, well, they didn't actually remove it, they just didn't put it in the factory. Some people actually modify the standard 60D to remove that filter, but we purchased it so that it was built without the filter. That means that we do see that that part of the near infrared spectrum that Astronomy Live was talking about using that camera. Of course, any astronomer, any amateur astronomer can use a proper infrared camera, and Astronomy Live does use one with his telescope. But as I've pointed out previously, if there was a brown dwarf or any rogue planet passing through our solar system, we wouldn't need to image it in infrared because it would be close enough to our sun to reflect visible light. The only reason infrared is used to image brown dwarfs is because the nearest brown dwarf is so very far away from the sun that it doesn't reflect visible light enough to be visible in the visible spectrum. The nearest brown dwarf to us is 6.5 light years away. The nearest star to our sun, by comparison, is 4.25 light years away. So we're talking about another 2 light years past our nearest star. So this claim that Nibiru can only be seen in infrared is just utter nonsense, which is sadly parroted by the people who hear these claims, don't understand them, and keep repeating them.
Yeah, the whole hiding behind the sun thing, I mean, I don't understand what people don't get about that. I recently posted a video of just how the Earth travels around the sun, and we're around the sun every year. So if there was something behind the sun, we would see it because we're always moving. I put like a simulator. Well, actually, it was footage from the Cassiopeia project, which is a great website for people just wanting to get into science and physics. Like they sort of baby step people through it, and I just put it to music. But how can something be hiding behind the sun? Like how many different ways can you explain how that's not possible for people to actually understand that? I just I don't know. There has to be like a breaking point. Like for me, I had a breaking point, and like one day I was just like, wow, I've been deceived, and it's like you wake up.
That's just such a ridiculous claim to make. Marshall Masters is another one who is a great one for making this claim that Nibiru Planet X, whatever you want to call it, is next to the sun and can be seen in various webcam videos and so forth. What we have to remember is if listeners can visualize a top-down view of the solar system with all of the planets moving around the sun, you imagine the Earth in its orbit and our position at any point in time on its orbit. Where are we in 6 months' time ahead of that, or 6 months' time before? We're going to be on the other side of the sun, looking in the opposite direction from what we're looking now. So the only way that an object could be next to the sun sort of permanently would be if it was in some sort of very close, tight orbit around the sun, synchronous with our orbit as we go around the sun, which is just ridiculous. Astronomy Live?
Yeah, and if it were that close to the sun in some extremely tight orbit, it would have to be, well, even much tighter than Mercury's orbit. And unless it was highly inclined and somehow the orbital, I'd have to run the numbers, but I suspect that in any orbital inclination you put it in, if it's orbiting the sun that rapidly, you're going to get a lot of solar transits of it too. So at some point during the year, you're going to see it passing in front of the sun from Earth's perspective.
Right. Now, we're coming up to about 1 hour with the Hangout, so I think it's probably a good idea if we look to winding it up. I'll just hand over to you guys if you want to close out. Any final comments?
I'm just curious, you know, what brings people to this Planet X thing is, from what I've seen is, and for what brought me to here, or where I am, is everyone that I've come across seems to have a general feeling in the air that something's off and something's wrong. And, you know, people seem to be searching for answers in the unknown. And, you know, the Planet X theory, Nibiru, all that, you know, is just an answer for people to, latch onto to make them feel like they understand, like, the unknown. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And the more I think about it, the more I feel that EMFs and radio waves and just everything that we're exposed to now that we weren't, even, let's say 2 decades ago, in comparison, no one was really using cell phones. No one really had Wi-Fi. You were lucky if you had a computer. It's amazing how things have changed. I'm sort of thinking like this weird feeling in the air that everyone's having is almost an effect, like of some kind of, I don't know, anxiety as like a side effect, driven neurologically by EMFs and, maybe all these toxins that we're exposed to now that we weren't a few decades ago. What are your thoughts on that?
I've got a theory on that, and I think it is simply called the internet. And sadly, this wonderful age of information that we've got seems to have just allowed the stupid in people to spread like wildfire. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as the stupid is spreading like wildfire. I would go as far as expanding on her idea that people don't know things and they get the feeling that something's off because they don't understand how something works. And they see this channel that has, 34,000 subscribers. So obviously something there must be true if all these people are gravitating toward it. And they just latch onto it just to belong to people that apparently claim to have the answers. And they got all these other people that say these answers are correct. They're in the same boat. It's just an argument ad populum. It's a popular idea. It must be true.
It's an echo chamber.
Yeah, pretty much.
See, what brought me here was some weird spiritual things. I wasn't even paying attention to any of this, like weird sci-fi stuff. And, I sort of just stumbled upon it like after the fact. So, I'm still trying to make sense of it, but I found out that, there's no reason to be scared no matter what. It's just you have to equip yourself with, being fearless and knowledge and just keep on learning about your surroundings and try not to, latch on to answers because it's safer just to sort of be zoomed out and just absorbing what you're seeing and analyzing things and being sort of non-biased and not attaching ego to it. I don't know.
Well, I've got to give you kudos on that. I don't know your name. That's the first time I've actually seen you, so I'm just going to call you Sky. I've got to give you credit because once you get into a rabbit hole like that, it becomes such an echo chamber that it's hard to find your way out of it by actually expanding your mind and learning about stuff that you don't know to get out of that hole. So for you to actually take it upon yourself to see some of the problems that they were having and then figure out that they're wrong is just amazing to me.
Yeah, it's been painful too because I've had, with my YouTube channel, I had an amazing following of all these Planet Xers and everyone loved me. They loved my commentary and everything. And, I sort of had to pull the brakes up. And, people weren't ready for that. They didn't understand. But I've always prided myself on my integrity and my honesty and just being humble in life. That's just naturally how I've been. And I had to stay true to myself. And I wasn't feeling it. I was seeing something different and I had to share that with people. I lost almost all my subs and pretty much rebuilt my channel back up with people that understand where I'm coming from. So it has not been easy. And it's been like a battlefield. And some of the people that I was friends with, in the Nibiru age, it's been a battle,
So one thing that I was actually wanting to bring up with you, WTF Sky, because I know I think we had a hangout before you kind of mentioned trying to find out why people are feeling off these days. And there are things that we're exposed to that do affect our health and perhaps affect our mental state. So an example, a very real example that science is now investigating is the effect that exposure to all this light that we have from our electronic devices has on our circadian rhythms. And I'm bad about this. I'm like the worst when it comes to this. but they're actually saying there's an article out here on Harvard Medical School's website suggesting that you don't look at an LED screen within 2 to 3 hours of your bedtime. And how many of us can honestly say that we put down all of our electronics, turn off all LED screens, LED TVs, 2 to 3 hours before our bedtime? I certainly can't raise my hand to that like any night. And it has deleterious effects on your health. It has bad effects on your circadian rhythm because the blue, it's pretty strong on the blue side of the spectrum. Light from LED screens, significant impact on your circadian rhythm. And so they make recommendations in the like this, but who honestly does that? And from a human perspective, if you look at the course of human history, up until very, very recently in human history, we haven't had this kind of blue lighting, really bright blue lighting, artificial lighting in our presence at night. Cavemen used torches and redder lights. I think there probably is something to be said there for things that we are now exposing ourselves to that our biology hasn't had time to catch up to. And it's not necessarily all crank and woo, but it's also perhaps not as sensational as what some people might be looking for. But there are very real concerns out there. Now, correlation is not causation, but there are things to be investigated. I think that is true. And we're not saying that. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I would say that's kind of subjective because in my case, I can't go to sleep without my TV on. I put the sleep timer on, and if it's not on, I can't go to sleep. So I think that would vary person to person.
No, there's definitely a psychological aspect to that. So if you're in a habit of doing that, now I'm kind of in my own habits too. Like that's not necessarily, well, it's kind of one of my habits, but one of my big habits is like if I got to really buckle down and focus on writing a research paper or a grant or whatever, I have to have noise on in the background. Music is okay, but ideally I want some stupid sitcom playing in the background that I'm not actually going to pay attention to, but I just need to hear talking, whether it's talk radio. Talk radio is good. Or stupid sitcoms, something completely brainless that I just hear people talking in the background who aren't really talking to me or about me. That's what I got to get myself in that mode. So like there are psychological aspects that we train ourselves into that we become dependent on for certain behaviors. And
now,
that's true.
Just for transparency, I can see where the study is coming from because we see blue light in the sky and we know it's daytime. So blue light from a television, you would think would keep people awake because. So I can see where the study is coming from, but in my case, I have the exact opposite results.
Well, astronomy.
And the one last thing
for you. Next time you're on a paper and you need something, some talkback, whatever, completely brainless to listen to, you might want to head over to the Nibiru Planet X 2016 channel.
I tried to avoid that.
That was an easy joke I left open for you there. But no, it can't be that because that just makes me angry. I can't if it's going to make me angry, I can't do it that way.
Okay, Sean, have you got any final comments you'd like to make?
I think my comments were just the responses I had to the other two.
And WTF Sky, anything else you'd like to close out on?
Oh, it was clear skies when I was sitting out here earlier. I was going to bring my telescope out, but then all the clouds rolled in. So, sorry guys, I'm not bringing it out tonight.
I live in Indiana.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining me. Thank you to Sean Harford for joining us on this hangout. He's been sitting in the background on the previous two, helping us out with the technical side, so it's good to have him on board and joining us for a discussion. WTF Sky, it's been very interesting listening to your recent hangouts and watching your videos. I've only recently become aware of you, and yes, thumbs up for your videos there. And Astronomy Live, keep up the good work. Let's keep fighting this fight, and hopefully we might make some sort of impression with these people who have been misled by the fearmongers, liars, and hoaxes. Thank you to all the people who are watching live and to the people who are contributing in the chat. So this is Dazza the cameraman, and we look forward to doing this again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello YouTube, this is Dazza the cameraman. Today is Tuesday, October 18, 2016, and this is a live YouTube hangout. We've got Astronomy Live with me and Sean Hufford. We're going to be discussing the claims and videos by Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016 and the recent events surrounding those videos and claims. So welcome along Astronomy Live, and welcome Sean Hufford.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for letting me tag along.
You're welcome. So let's just do a recap of recent events. We looked at a video that was posted. It was brought to my attention via Facebook, posted on one of my Facebook pages, and somebody wanted to know what we were seeing in the video. And as a result, I did a follow-up video to that, and it turned out that the object that we were seeing in the video by Scott of Nibiru Planet X 2016 that he claimed was planet Enoch, as seen from stereo behind, was in fact the moon. Now, Astronomy Live and I have been over this several times, and we have proven beyond any doubt that it is indeed the moon. However, it seems that Scott from Nibiru News wants to hold on to this lie that it is planet Enoch or some other rogue body passing through the solar system. Now, we've been backwards and forwards with Scott, and at first he was a gentleman. He did actually remove the video at the start, and it seemed that all was good. But then 24 hours later, he went on a complete rage and re-uploaded that video, maintaining that it is indeed planet Enoch. And he has since been basically a train wreck, making all sorts of accusations of conspiracies and that there are shills out to get him and that his life's been threatened and all sorts of things like that. So it seems that the gentlemanly approach has failed with Scott. We've reached out to him. We tried to meet him halfway, but obviously he's not happy with that. So basically we've run out of patience now. I've run out of patience. So this is a no-holds-barred discussion about what's going on. So welcome along again, Astronomy Live and Sean, and what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think that Kaiser Cube in the chat has actually nailed the nail on the head. His income took a hit after he took his video down and came into your Hangout and agreed with everything that you said. And he realized that it was going to affect his bottom line, so he had to do an about face and just try to go into total damage control mode. And he's gone overboard with it. That's my take on it.
Astronomy Live?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, and I don't claim to know what his motivations are. I can't see into the mind or heart of the man, but he clearly is two-faced about the way he's approaching us. I noticed that anytime he's sitting safely behind his keyboard and he's not confronting us in a hangout, he will feel free to totally rage out on his keyboard and call us every name in the book, every name under the sun, chill, troll, liar, and worse. I mean, just dropping F-bombs left and right, and you know, totally hate on both you and me, Daza, and you know, claim that we're all lying and everything else. Then, if you get him into a hangout, whether it's on your channel or WTF Sky's channel, suddenly he tries to play it up like he's just having a laugh, and sometimes he'll throw out these little snide remarks and insults, but he'll immediately try to say, "Oh, I'm just joking. Oh, I'm just joking. It's no big deal. I'm not an angry guy." And you might even end it on what seems like a good note, but you turn around and by the next day, there's 2 or 3 new comments that are just walls of text filled with absolute rage and seething hatred, both to you and me. And to me, I don't know. I can't, like I said, I can't read into the mind or heart of the man, but I really think there's something deeply emotional going on there in those posts. I don't think I could write like that, even if I tried, if I were just trying to fake it. Like, that seems like it's coming from the heart, is what I'm saying. So I don't know what his deal is, but the video that he's raging out about that we debunked does show the moon. And he claims to have this large PDF document that he received from a couple of astronomers, he says. And Dazza, you reached out to both of those. I'd love for you to go back over that ground again. I know we've beat that horse, but I don't think it's dead yet. It's still entertaining to expose the truth on that, because last I heard, he was maintaining his lie that he had contacted at least one of the people in the screenshot he sent you, and you happen to know for a fact that's not true.
Yes, that's correct. He sent me this great big long expletive-written rant late one night just as I was about to go to bed, and told me that he had just woken up and that he had previously contacted these 2 astronomers, and he gave me all of the details. In fact, while I'm talking, I'll just try and pull those details up so I can read off them. And he sent me a couple of screenshots of the contacts at the University of Pittsburgh that he claimed that he had contacted. This gave me the names of the people, the 2 gentlemen that he seemed to be referring to. And I actually emailed those 2 gentlemen to ask them if Scott had been in contact with him. And the reply came back from both of them that no, they had not had any contact with this gentleman. Now, Scott seems to be incapable of or unwilling to verify who the two gentlemen were that he claims that he was in contact with. So it still remains a mystery. Well, actually, I don't believe it is a mystery, because personally now, after giving him every opportunity to try and present his evidence, I don't believe that he ever contacted these two people. I believe that it was a lie from the start. Okay, so I've just pulled up the message thread that was between me and Scott via Facebook. And just to recap, he said, I woke up about 15 minutes ago and I received an email from a gentleman who is a professional astronomer and astrophysicist and professor at the University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he is also the head of the Greater Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Astronomy Club. After having my conversation with you yesterday and watching Scott's video information pertaining to the coronal image from 2007, I decided to contact this man and ask him for a little help. I submitted to him a copy of the YouTube video that Scott made that I did not see until after our conversation yesterday. And I sent him a copy of the corona image from 2007 after I found the original. And when I woke up this morning, he answered my reply with a 13-page PDF file and is willing to join me, you, and that little prick Scott from Astrology Astronomy Live in a hangout debate, because Scott's information pertaining to the coronal image, and that being the moon orbiting the sun, is complete 100% bullshit. Now, he also went on to say that, let me pick it up, if we do have this hangout meeting and we record it, and I place this on YouTube, Scott will probably have to close his YouTube channel down. He's referring to Astronomy Live, because these two men that are agreeing to come with us will make a complete and utter fool of Scott from Astrology Astronomy Live. Now, directly under that comment, he posted a screenshot showing location and contact, Department of Physics and Astronomy, and it gives a street address, Pittsburgh, United States. Dr. Adam Leibovich, Department Chair, and it gives his email address, and Dr. Robert DeVati, Admissions Committee Chair. I contacted both of these gentlemen, and as I mentioned before, they have had no contact whatsoever with Scott from Nibiru Planet X 2016. Scott is lying.
Yeah, and you know, something else I wanted to point out here was when you first shared that information with me, for kicks, I went and looked at all the professors that are listed in the physics department and astronomy department at University of Pittsburgh and cross-referenced this list with the heads of the local astronomy club there in Pittsburgh. And what do you know? I don't find any correlation between the people who are in charge of the Pittsburgh Astronomy Club and the professional astronomers at the University of Pittsburgh. They're two different groups of people. Now, if I overlook something, by all means, I'm willing to be wrong about that. But as far as I can tell, that was the first sign that there was something amiss to me. But I let that go. I didn't harp on that too much, because maybe it was an innocent mistake. Maybe they were actually two separate people and he got the two of them confused. It happens. But at this point, I'm no longer willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on things like that. I was at first, but this story just gets stinkier and stinkier as we go along. And, you know, now we know that he didn't contact either of those two people. And at first, when the first email came back, his excuse was, well, I didn't say it was that one. I mean, he was on there in the screenshot, but I didn't say it was him. Well, okay, immediately before that, if you look at the original context of what he said he had this contact from two people, right? So wouldn't that naturally imply, when he posted contact information from two people immediately thereafter, those are the two people he's talking about? I mean, would that not be a reasonable conclusion to reach?
I would think so.
Again, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that first until we got the second email back, but now it's clear he didn't contact either of those people. He's just completely lying about that. Now, that also makes me believe that he doesn't really have a 13-page PDF file, or at least he didn't when he said he did initially. Now, I'm not saying he won't have one eventually, because let's face it, he could whip something up in the meantime. He's had a few days now to whip something up. So far, he hasn't produced this PDF file, and he claims, or he's going to try to spin it and say, well, we're just worried about what that PDF file really contains, which is why we were so eager to see it. No, actually, I just wanted some confirmation that he was being at least a little honest and had the actual document. And when he